The fascination with death has long been a topic of discussion and sharing among those drawn to it. The harshness and strange allure of the afterlife can often stem from a lingering attachment or a special bond between an individual and someone who has passed away. In certain cases, people visit cemeteries to pay their respects at graves, either to ease their longing or to cope with loss. In other, more intense instances, they may turn to spirit boards or various special devices in an attempt to communicate with the other side. In certain cases, these actions can lead to consequences, some harmful, others not so severe. However, there are those who take things much further, crossing into the realms of illegality and sheer abnormality. Hello, it's me here, and today we're going to dive into the bizarre and deeply disturbing story of a man from Russia named Anatoly Moskvin. Anatoly is a man who is now 54 years old, and back in the 2000s, he was widely recognized as a genius by many. He was a historian, someone who published numerous academic papers and contributed knowledge to countless people. With an impressive command of languages, speaking up to 13 different tongues, those close to him describe him as a quiet, humble man with nothing unusual about him. However, there was one thing: he had a strange obsession with the afterlife. The academic papers he had published in the past also, in a way, hinted at this. He harbored a very dark secret, a secret that remained hidden from his family and those around him for a long time without them having the slightest clue. Back in 1966, Anatoly was born in the city of Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. His parents were Yuri Fedorovich and Elvira Alexandrovna. According to Anatoly's parents, he was a person who rarely interacted with others and found it difficult to make friends. However, he was exceptionally intelligent. Because of this, his parents believed that his shy and reserved nature was simply a trait that came with his remarkable intellect, and they didn't pay much attention to it. Because of that, Anatoly's childhood was completely different from that of other ordinary children. He was once a victim of abuse. One day, when he was in 3rd grade, Anatoly came home from school with his body covered in bruises. It turned out that those injuries had been caused by a man that day. To this day, it remains unclear whether Anatoly ever shared this heartbreaking story with his parents. And this wasn't even the most horrifying event that happened during Anatoly's childhood. What came next was the incident that caused Anatoly to develop twisted obsessions about disturbing topics. It was death. In 1979, when Anatoly was about 13 years old, a group of people dressed in black suits stopped him on his way home from school. At that time, they were on their way to the funeral of an 11-year-old girl named Natasha Petrova. They then forced Anatoly to go along with them. These people in black pulled him over to the coffin and made Anatoly kiss the body of the deceased girl. After that, the girl's mother even placed a wedding ring on Anatoly's finger and put the matching one on her deceased daughter. From that moment on, Anatoly's obsession and fascination with the dead began to grow. After that incident, he started having strange dreams about the deceased girl. He claimed that she would visit him every night and share with him knowledge about dark magic. At the same time, the girl begged Anatoly to find the village where these dark rituals had been performed. After he managed to locate that village, her visits in his dreams stopped. But it only lasted for a short while. After Anatoly left that village, she returned once again in his dreams. Anatoly tried to tell this story to his parents. They took him to a doctor, who concluded that it was happening because Anatoly was going through puberty. After that, they prescribed him herbal sedatives to help him relax. After a year of being visited by Natasha in his dreams, she eventually grew frustrated because Anatoly kept refusing to carry out the requests she made. So she proposed a deal with him. He would have to perform a dark ritual that required a tooth from one of his classmates. In return, she would leave forever and let Anatoly live in peace. Somehow, according to Anatoly, the ritual was successfully carried out, and just as promised in the deal, Natasha never came back again. However, That very ritual also sparked a powerful fascination in Anatoly with dark magic and the occult. Sometime later, Anatoly attended a university in Moscow and earned a degree in Celtic culture studies, a field that required extensive knowledge about ancient beliefs. Along with his growing obsession with dark magic, Anatoly began performing various rituals on dead animals and even vowed to remain single for the rest of his life. After graduating, Anatoly began researching and learning everything about the complex layouts and details of the cemeteries surrounding where he lived. After sharing his knowledge in several documents he wrote, he claimed to have studied more than 752 cemeteries between 2005 and 2007 in his hometown. With the help of another well-known historian named Oleg Ryabov, the two of them began their cross-country journey to explore and document cemeteries. At the same time, they uncovered the histories behind these places with the goal of writing a book called Nizhny Novgorod Necropolis, which would detail all of their findings. But Anatoly Moskvin had a secret intention of his own. In 2009, local residents began noticing that the graves of their loved ones appeared to have been disturbed. Some were even completely dug up. This led to a 2-year investigation to look deeper into these incidents. In the end, however, it didn't lead anywhere. In 2011, an anti-Muslim terrorist attack took place at an airport in Moscow. Not long after that, authorities began receiving reports about Muslim graves being dug up and vandalized. After an investigation was launched to identify a suspect, Anatoly quickly came under suspicion and was eventually arrested after being caught in the act of tampering with a grave. Soon after, the police began digging deeper into Anatoly Moskvin and the bizarre actions he had committed. The first place they searched was his home, since Anatoly was suspected of being part of an anti-Muslim group. When the investigation began, police believed they would find evidence of that inside his house. But what they actually discovered would send chills down your spine. The police search of the house where Anatoly was living with his parents led to the discovery of 29 life-sized dolls. These dolls were styled to look like antique figures, dressed in various kinds of clothing. Anatoly had applied makeup to them and even placed round objects into their eye sockets to give them a more lifelike appearance. But the terrifying truth was that these weren't ordinary dolls. All of them had been made from the mummified bodies of young girls, ranging in age from 3 to 12 years old. As police moved the dolls to examine them further, they noticed strange sounds coming from inside. Later, Anatoly revealed that he had built makeshift skeletons with music boxes inside each doll, so that when he interacted with them, they would respond with sounds. Anatoly even remembered the birthdays of each girl so he could hold birthday celebrations for them in his room. According to the police, there were photographs and fragments of headstones taken from graves, a notebook detailing how to make these dolls, and maps marking the locations of cemeteries in the area, all found scattered throughout the apartment. The clothing on most of these dolls was actually the same clothing the girls had been buried in. Anatoly explained that, in order to give the dolls a complete form, he would wrap their arms and legs with pieces of cloth and then secure them tightly with plastic. He did this with each limb and the face of every single doll before placing round objects into their eye sockets so they could, as he claimed, watch cartoons with him. During his police interrogation, Anatoly said that he loved most of them. However, a few dolls he wasn't particularly interested in would be pushed down into the basement and left forgotten. He did all of this by himself. Anatoly's parents knew that he had a strange fascination with making creepy human-shaped dolls. But what's unsettling is that they didn't seem to care much about it, even when those corpse dolls gave off an obvious foul odor. We saw those dolls, but we had no idea they were made from human remains. We thought it was just our son's hobby and didn't see anything wrong with it. Then there was a neighbor living next door who noticed a strong foul odor coming from their apartment every time he walked by. However, he simply assumed it was some kind of plumbing issue and didn't think much of it. Among all the bodies he kept there, The one that had been with him the longest stayed for 9 years. With all these discoveries, Anatoly was charged with extremely serious crimes. He admitted to having tampered with a total of 44 graves and was committed to a psychiatric facility. Not long after, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was confined to a psychiatric hospital. There were several reports claiming that Anatoly was beaten multiple times by guards at the facility. And according to his mother, Anatoly had to take around 15 pills a day. This led him to develop catatonia, a mental disorder that affects a person's ability to move, react, and engage with their surroundings. Because of this, a human rights attorney named Violeta Volkova was hired to represent Anatoly Moskvin, with the goal of getting him transferred out of the facility and into another institution for re-evaluation. Expressing distrust toward the doctors at the current hospital, after all the legal battles, in September 2018, he was given the opportunity to continue his psychiatric treatment at home, along with the right to live freely. This decision sparked a lot of controversy and tension within the community. The mother of one of the victims, named Natalia Shadrina, had no idea that all this time she had been visiting an empty coffin at her daughter's grave. Her daughter's body, Olga, was one of more than 20 girls that Anatoly had dug up and kept at his home. Olga was brutally murdered when she was only 10 years old. On the very first day, she was allowed to leave home alone to walk from her house to her grandmother's, just across the street, while her parents were still at work. "I'm already 10 years old and can walk by myself. This is probably the most terrible thing any parent could go through. I can't imagine the guilt they must have carried after learning about the dark fate of their daughter. And not just once, but twice her daughter was taken from her, surely." This made Natalia incredibly angry. She was one of many who opposed Anatoly's release. "He needs to be monitored. This creature has spread fear and panic throughout my life. So now, Anatoly Moskvin can be considered a free man, no longer under supervision and free to move about in society." Free as he may be, his story will always be remembered as one of the most bizarre and dark tales in history. And I hope this man is still being closely monitored by the authorities, now and for the rest of his life, because someone with a mental illness and such a strange obsession, if left free, could easily continue pursuing his disturbing interests and unintentionally cause pain to others. That's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.